Hey everybody, I hope that you can hear us. We are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Rebecca Miller. I am one of the committee members of the ACRL Science and Technology Section Information Literacy Committee. And we have one of these chats on timely topics about once a month. If you can hear me, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and say yes or yay or hi in the chat box. Yay! Okay, Bonnie, hey, you're here. You can hear us. Great. So it looks like we've got a good turnout for so early in the morning for some of you. We've got about 11 attendees, it looks like. Before we get started and before I introduce our illustrious chat facilitator for the day, why don't we all just go ahead and introduce ourselves in the chat box. And you should be seeing that chat box over on the right-hand side. Just chat in the box. You can put in your name, put in where you're from. And we'd also like to hear a little bit about why you're interested in data services and data information literacy, a love story. Tell us a little bit about what you may bring to the session today. And if you have any questions up front, go ahead and put those in as well, and we'll see if we can start to answer those and start to get chatting with those right now. So I'll give you guys just a few minutes to go ahead and put some information in the chat box before we completely get started. Now we've got 13, great. I'm glad to see all of you all here today. Hey everyone, thanks again for introducing yourself. A little bit of history about this chat. You may hear some silences throughout the session today. This chat used to be totally text-based, but we have now added audio and visuals, which we think have definitely enhanced it. Margaret, I see that you're asking about being able to hear. You should be able to hear now. Sometimes we do have some stretches of silence just because people are using the chat box to chat in. Alternatively, if you feel comfortable and if you want to, when we have some open chatting sessions, you can certainly turn on your microphone and we could try that. I don't know if we've had a lot of that yet, but we could certainly try it. So it looks like a lot of you have had the opportunity to introduce yourselves. If you haven't, go ahead and keep putting in your information. But while you do that, I will introduce to you our chat facilitator for the day. I have here with me today Andy Osier, who is the Data Science and Informatics Librarian at Virginia Tech. Her office is actually right next to mine, so she is my library neighbor. She has been, well, I'll actually let you say a few things about what you do, because you probably know better than I do. But we are definitely very grateful to have Andy with us today. So take it away, Andy.
All right, thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everybody. I see some familiar names on this attendee list. Looks good. So as Rebecca said, I'm the Data Science and Informatics Librarian here at Virginia Tech. And I have the dubious honor currently to be the only person with data in my title, I think. Can you think of anyone else who has data in their title?
Here at the library?
I think it's just me.
It might be.
I think it is. Anyway, so data right now is sort of my area, my bailiwick, my focus at the moment. And I'm basically trying to figure out all things data. So I have recently seen not a distinction, but sort of two different areas of the way libraries are approaching data. One being the data services model, one being sort of a data information literacy model. And Rebecca is one of my information literacy gurus. She and I've had a number of conversations on the topic of information literacy and how data and data services and research data management and all these sort of terms that we throw around sort of fit in. So let's see. Okay.
We've got a few more people introduce themselves. Hello to everyone who is here. Hey, Diana, good to see you.
Oh, there's Wendy. Hi, Wendy. Wendy, you think you've had enough of me lately?
Never.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm just reading the chat. I want to see everybody.
It looks like there's definitely a lot of overlapping interest in this group for such a relatively new topic, I would say. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just relatively new to it.
I don't know. I think it's been developing. I think it's been gaining steam over time. There were a couple of very early efforts, very early and important efforts to sort of define the landscape of what's going on with data. And actually, let me switch to my second slide because I wanted to open with just providing you guys with a couple of, not necessarily, they're certainly very important. It's not a comprehensive list. But these are links, programs, frameworks, papers that have been very influential on my thinking of how data services and data literacy, data information literacy fit together. So first, and those of you who popped in recently, there is a link to the Google presentation version of these slides. I don't know if you'll be able to see it.
Maybe pop it back in there for a second.
Yeah, let me try that because I want you guys to be able to click on the link if you so desire. It's just a bit.ly. Okay, there it goes. So it's from Rebecca Miller to all attendees. It's bit.ly/1M5 capital H, capital I, PK, and that will take you to the slides that I'm going to be referencing today. There are a few links in there, so feel free to click around if you're not already familiar with this program.
And I'll just jump in here real quickly. For those of you who want to be able to access this after the fact, this session is being recorded by ACRL, and the link will go out on the STS listserv and maybe a couple of others as well. So you will be able to access the presentation plus the fascinating discussion that goes along with it after the fact. All right, back to you, Andy.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. So the first really influential thing on my thinking about data was the Data Information Literacy project. And this was a grant-funded project carried out by a number of really great institutions and really smart people, smart librarians, smart subject specialists who have sort of pioneered the way that and I think a lot of people think about how we teach data information literacy. So I've given you a link to their page. They've got a lot of really great papers. I think some of them are involved. Some of the involved folks may be here today. If so, please feel free to chime in. If you want to give a little summary about the program, about what you guys have done. I was lucky enough to be able to attend their capstone project in, I guess it was late September at Purdue. And it was just a fascinating 2 days all about how do we sort of conceive of the way we teach data information literacy? How do we involve this data training into the services that the library already provides? So that's a really great link, and they've got some really great materials there as well. The second link is the framework for a data management curriculum, which is developed by the eScience, it's the UMass Med eScience group. And what they've done is they've put together an entire framework for a data management curriculum, in case you couldn't tell that by the title. And I've given you a link to their PDF. They've put together this framework, and I hear, will soon be releasing like a full curriculum complete with lessons and assessments and all kinds of interesting things. And there are a few people who are sort of beta testing this at different universities. And from what I hear, they've had some really nice results from this. It is sort of medically focused. There are case studies that inform the way the course is taught. But it's still really a really interesting and I think influential piece of the data literacy puzzle. The third link I've given you is a very long and yet important report, Research Data Management Principles, Practices, Prospects from the CLEAR group. And it's a rather long report, but it's definitely worth reading. They did a very comprehensive survey over, gosh, I'm not sure when the survey started. The paper was recently released. I think the survey maybe went over a year or so. And again, if anybody is associated with this project, please feel free to chime in and correct me if I'm wrong. But it has some really interesting things to say. Hi, Amy. I have a shortened URL. Let me paste in the chat again. You should be able to use that URL to access the presentation, where you can click on the links.
And it looks like a couple of people are having some questions about the sound. And we do have our expert, Allison, checking on that. So if you are having issues, just let us know, because it looks like some people are saying that the sound is okay, but some people are having some issues. We will continue on regardless.
Onwards and upwards. Right. So the first thing I wanted to do, and wow, my slides really got a little stripped down, but that's okay.
Simple is good. Minimalist is good.
That's right. Keep it simple. So the first thing I wanted to do was have a little bit of a discussion on these different terms. There are so many terms that are thrown around in the data world. It's sometimes difficult, I think, for people to keep them straight, to know how they're different, how they're similar, how they work together. See if I can move the microphone a little bit closer. All right. So let's take, oh, something just beeped. Okay.
That wasn't you.
Sorry. Let's just take a couple minutes, and if you have a sense of what one of these terms is, go ahead and just put it very briefly in the chat frame, or turn on your mic and tell us about it. I just want to get a sense, and these terms may mean different things to different people. For instance, the data information literacy folks feel very strongly that the term should be data information literacy, and that's something that's distinct from data literacy, which is a term that I tend to use. And I've got a quote from them and maybe a slide or two to show that. But if you guys wouldn't mind just looking, putting a couple words maybe for a couple of these terms in the chat, that would be a great way to start.
This is, again, one of those silent periods. So if you're not hearing anything, well, except for me talking right now, in a moment you won't hear anything, because we will be waiting for your responses to be coming on in.
We're going to be quiet until we get some responses. Come on.
Data reference.
Data reference. Barbara, tell us what data reference is. Excellent, Diana. Data info lit, knowing how to access, interpret, and reuse available data. Very interesting. Data reference, you're trying to figure out what data reference is. Yep. That's actually a term that I've not encountered recently. Is that a term that you're actively using? Data management from Rita, being able to curate research data so that it can be shared and retrieved. Barbara's sending to the host and the presenter. So she says that they're interested in what they can do as subject librarians to help patrons access data. Yes, that is another piece of this puzzle that I've not really encountered as fitting into any of these particular terms, but something that my library is especially interested in. We want to be able to point patrons towards data sets that may be useful to them, whether they are data sets that we have purchased or data sets that are freely available. And anybody who was here before Rebecca and I turned off the microphone at the very beginning knows that we've been having some discussions about Open Data Day, which is February 22nd. And if you're not familiar with that, you may want to just Google it. The Open Knowledge Foundation, I believe, runs a number of hackathons and sort of video chats about how to use open data in new and interesting ways. So let's see, what else we got? Research data management, managing data through the entire life cycle, including producing DMPs. That's from Christine. Yes, excellent. So yeah, there's this idea of managing data through the entire life cycle of its usefulness, including the production of data management plans. And I think a lot of times when people hear data management, they just think, oh, that's data management plans. That's, you know, the two-page document that's needed for federal grant funds. And I think that research data management is actually a bit of a bigger picture. And that's what the term data curation, which I should have included in this list, but didn't. That was an omission on my part. Data curation should absolutely be on this list. But I think that's one of the things that the term data curation really sort of encompasses. It's not just about DMPs. It's about other things as well. So let's see, e-research and e-science from Wendy. These terms overlap to me, and I prefer e-research because it's more inclusive. Absolutely. So I think e-research and e-science. E-science, from the way I understand it, sort of came out of this idea of sort of interdisciplinary science that can be connected together. It's very much connected with what the National Science Foundation is sort of promoting. And e-research and e-science are broader terms that include data management. Well, e-research, I think, can include data management because you're talking about sort of digital methods for doing research. And I think, you know, digital data is a big part of that, sure. So Amy says each of these terms seem to pertain to a different audience. Research data management for PIs, data services for the OVPR. Yeah, that's an excellent point. So we do have to think about the audiences for these different terms. So yeah, research data management for PIs. PIs are probably most interested in the DMP aspect of this stuff, and maybe less in the sort of holistic data management, data curation side, even though they probably should be. But data services being part of maybe what the Office of Research is focused on. So Barry agrees with Wendy, yes, e-science and e-research. E-science is a subset of e-research. Yeah, I can see that as well. That does make a lot of sense. And Allison says, interesting definition found of e-science isn't what I thought, computationally intensive science that is carried out in a highly distributed network environment, or a science that uses immense data sets, right? So we're getting into the realm of big data here. That's also a very interesting definition. Digital humanities, that's a subject dear to my heart. I've been working on a digital humanities project for a while. Yeah, digital humanities does use some of the same data techniques. The interesting thing about the digital humanities is that a lot of digital humanities researchers don't think of their data as such. They don't think of it as data. They use different terms like resources or sources, texts, that sort of thing, even though, you know, they are doing a lot of the same computationally advanced procedures on these sources. Absolutely. So data services, I think I see as sort of a almost a more traditional library service, with sort of consultation. Almost that idea of data reference. You know, data services does that sort of encompass everything? Or, I mean, is data services sort of the broader term, or is research data management the broader term? Yeah, don't smirk to the DH people. Exactly. Exactly. They're doing such interesting stuff, though. They're really fun to talk to. So does anyone have an opinion on which is the bigger term, data services or research data management? All right, well, just to fill in the silence, I feel like I should be singing the sounds of silence or something. Yeah, data science, data services sounds more inclusive to me. Yeah. Ah, an RDM. Data support services, that's interesting as well. Getting to that supporting aspect. Yep. That's an excellent point, Wendy. So research data management is just one of the data services. So outside of research data management, what else does data services encompass? What other services are there if research data management is one of those services? Oh, GIS stuff. Yep, that's absolutely important. Data science. Yeah, data science is a really interesting term, and I'll get back to that in a minute. So repositories, sure. So do you guys, Marianne, do you guys have a separate data repository, or is all your data going into like an institutional repository? Barry says data visualization, absolutely. Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. You do have the TUR. Yep. Okay, great. So research data to distinguish it from the census. Yep. Survey design, that's really interesting too. We actually have a statistics lab that helps a lot with survey design that I would really like to develop some relationships with here. Yeah, data citation, absolutely. Collecting data, absolutely. So data science is a really interesting term. My title is technically data science and informatics librarian. So I actually don't have data services or research data management or data curation or anything in my job description. Data science is sort of a combination of statistics, programming, sort of data wrangling savvy, and basically storytelling. If you start looking into what data science is, sort of almost on a corporate level, you find that one of the prime values of data science is that idea that you can use data, you can use statistics, that you can use sort of programming techniques in order to make the data tell a story or tell a story with the data. So that's one of the things that I've really been thinking about, like how do we use data to tell a story? Yes, data science, that's an excellent point, tend to be actual scientists with a lot of experience in data. They tend to be statisticians, right? There are a couple of programs that will ostensibly train librarians in to be data scientists, but I think I'm part of the group that's not entirely convinced that you can really be a data scientist without an extensive background in statistics. I have some background in statistics, but not a huge amount of background in statistics. But I feel like I'm a data science librarian in the same way that a chemistry librarian is a chemistry librarian. So a chemistry librarian is not a chemistry researcher, is not a chemist. In the same way, I'm not really a data scientist, and I don't pretend to be one, or at least I try not to pretend to be one. But I feel like I know enough about what's going on behind the scenes of data science that I can sort of speak with people about the way that data science might assist them in their projects, in their research, in their worldview. And we've actually had a number of meetings within the library about how can data science help the library tell the story that it wants to with its data. Yeah, Syracuse High School has a track for data science. They actually have a really great MOOC, which may be starting up again. And it has some really great lectures. Another data science, there's actually another data science MOOC through Coursera. I think it went on last summer for about 8 weeks, and it was run by someone from the is it a data science institute at the University of Washington? I'm not sure, but they have sort of a data science center there, and it was the MOOC from Coursera was run by that gentleman, and he was very good. Yep. So yeah, Wendy, you've got the statistics sort of folded into the library. That's great. So you can just go in and check the MOOC. Well, you have to sign up for the MOOC, but once you signed up, I mean, it's free if you can if you can find out when it starts. And then you have access to all of their course materials and all the videos, which are can actually be extremely helpful. So the iSchool is the information school at Syracuse. That must be at the eScience Institute. Yeah, I think you're right, Christine. Yeah, Syracuse University calls it its library school and an iSchool, like an information school. Oh, that's okay. You're fine. Okay, so we've covered data science. Any questions at this point? Burning questions? Oh, thanks, Barbara, for that link. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the course. I did the typical thing, signed up for it, stuck with it for about 2 weeks, got busy over the summer, and then had to let it go, as many people do. But it was fascinating. I mean, just watching the video lectures, and looking at the exercises. Now, the exercises were very difficult. I had a colleague who actually got through about 5 or 6 weeks, and you had to have quite a bit of programming because there was mining Twitter data and doing projects like that. Yeah, I love MOOCs. I love starting MOOCs. I don't think I've ever actually finished one. Oh, that's a bad that's a bad admission to make.
Yeah, the exact same note. I've started like 3 MOOCs and never finished one.
But they're so interesting, and you have access to all the materials, which is what I really want. All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide, and we can take the next question. So, wait, actually, there was a question in there that I think I missed. Hang on. No, I don't see one. That must be my imagination. Oh, thanks, Barbara, for the data science iSchool MOOC. And I think they have a thing where if you actually complete the MOOC, they'll give you like a discount on tuition if you want to do the CIS in data science from Syracuse. So if you're contemplating a CIS, it might be worth trying to do their free MOOC. Okay, so my next question is, do you teach data information literacy as part of library instruction? Is there, at your institution, is there a relationship between library instruction and data information literacy? And what I've given you here is a quote then that sort of defines data information literacy from the DIL folks, the data information literacy folks. And I've given you a link at the bottom to, this is actually their first paper. They have a more recent paper from 2013. But as I was starting this sort of research before the paper came out, this was the paper that I really sort of internalized. So this was the link that I gave you. But if you go to the DIL site, they do have a link to the more recent paper, sort of reporting their findings and how their project turned out. So is data information literacy seen as a part of library instruction? So what do you mean, Margaret? You say that you feel that the data science and e-science programs are cool, but they overlook the librarian's role in data services. So what is the librarian's role in data services? Yep, it doesn't have to be super technical, sure. So you think that there's too much emphasis in data science and e-science on the technical side. Getting back to the gathering data from Twitter. Yep. Well, in that MOOC's defense, they did walk you through it. I'm pretty sure that one of the videos walked you through exactly how to pull the data from Twitter. So Christine works with an econometrics class here every semester, teaching a session on data and one on traditional BIB research. Great. They have a semester-long empirical research project that's very public data centric. Yeah. I think one of the important things about designing these data information literacy not schedules or courses, I'm losing words.
Workshops?
Workshops, yeah, lessons, lectures, is to sort of identify the spheres in which they'll be immediately useful. For an example, from my personal experience, a colleague and I have targeted a brand new undergraduate major here at Virginia Tech, environmental informatics. And we've targeted them and started speaking to the faculty who were very receptive to us coming in and doing a couple of guest lectures. In fact, in one of the intro classes, the faculty member was so excited that he pulled us in for 4 different lessons just in the first 2 or 3 months of the course. So they were very excited. We're also doing a guest lecture in a grad course, actually 2 grad courses as well.
And I think that level of thinking about what classes are good matches for this is definitely an important one in the conversation. Andy, when you first approached the information literacy group about it, we thought, how are we going to include this? We barely have enough time to teach students what our databases are, how to evaluate resources. And then when we got into discussions, it was really all about how separate this is. And I think we're all still wrapping our minds around how this fits into the information literacy program that we already have going, because it definitely does expand and enhance it. Something that we're really trying to wrap our minds around, although you've got a pretty cool schedule of workshops coming up. Yeah. It's really starting to take off.
It is, and one of the things that I've tried to be very cognizant of is not overwhelming the instruction team. I don't want to cut well, you guys already have way too much to do. You've got a lot of teaching to do, and I don't want to add a burden on top of that. But on the same side, I think that this, including some of this data stuff could be very useful.
Absolutely.
So I think targeting specific areas, rolling it out a little bit slowly at first, being able to show success to the rest of the team is going to be really important. So.
And I will say, we also teach a 1-credit graduate level research methods class out of the library, and we incorporated a lesson on data for the first time, and that lesson was commented on, I don't think I told you this actually, was commented on by more students than any other.
Cool.
So that was one thing that we had never included in the research methods class before that they found very, very helpful. So.
And if you look in the Q&A, Jake, who's the lead on the DIL project, says that the DIL project site is at datainfolit.org. Sorry about that, I gave the Purdue Wiki site.
Should we copy and paste that into the chat?
Yeah, let me go ahead and do that. I don't know if everybody can see that. Datainfolit.org. Yep.
There it is.
There we go. Not a problem, not a problem. I should have given that URL and not the other one anyway. I'm so used to going to the old data info website that was the URL that I grabbed. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's see. What have I missed while Rebecca and I were chatting? So Brad, you said that at an ACIST 2007 annual meeting, somebody described how science was changing from lab settings to recording natural settings, which results in a lot of data. So what does that mean, natural settings? See, I would say for me, sort of a life-changing moment in terms of data and research is this idea that data sets should be reused, especially with the NSF suggestions that data sets should be sort of put together, shaken up, and viewed in different ways. So I'm really curious about what recording natural settings means. Personal information management. Good point, Amy. Yes, one of my colleagues here is really into personal information management, especially for our first-year students. And I think it's a great point that she makes and that you make. So this idea that maybe these data management lessons, data information literacy, should be rolled out to different groups in different ways. So you would approach first years in a different way that you would approach graduate students. That makes a ton of sense. But talking about personal information management, I think, is a great segue into these data management issues that we're talking about. I see what you're saying, Brad. Yeah, less statistical sampling and just capturing the universe. Sure. Sure. Which brings up a good point about sort of metadata too. I mean, you need to have a lot of metadata for that as well. So not only are you generating a huge amount of data, but the metadata for that data is becoming much more important, or increasingly important. Great. All right, I'm going to move on. Let's see. Oh, personal information management. Great. Yes, exactly. First-year students are your future researchers, so you want them to start thinking about these issues early on. So how do you teach that? How do you teach them about metadata? My colleague who works with the first-year students always says that she doesn't want to use the term metadata because she thinks it's a little bit too scary.
It's a scary word.
It's a scary word. I'm a little scared of metadata. Yeah, teach them how to organize their photos and their music. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great way to start out. I also, when I'm talking to first-year students, I talk a lot about course notes. How do they organize their course notes? If they want to keep their course notes for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they want to come back to them, how should they store them so that they'll be available? I mean, you can get into sort of non-proprietary open standards for formats and that sort of thing. File names. Yep, that's great. All right, so I'm going to go on to, oh no, every time I go to go on, someone put something really interesting in the chat. So Brad's message is that you scientists are still scientists, and communication is inherent in their doing of science. But librarians know information. Good. Yep. Yep. That's a good point. I'm always telling researchers that I'm not there to take over their research. I'm there to sort of help them frame their research. Yeah, documenting data instead of metadata. That's an excellent point too. I think documentation is a little bit less scary. Then you can talk about lab notebooks. A lot of students I found don't see their lab notebook as metadata. That's a great point. I think librarians know how to keep information viable. I think that's that idea of reproducibility, validity, and viability is really important to what we're talking about here. Exactly. All right, I'm going to go ahead and advance the slide. So the role of subject knowledge, I think, is an especially tricky thing. And I've given you a quote here from the UIUC Library e-Research Report, which I'm pretty sure is available online. I think I just pulled it out of their repository. And there should be a link at the bottom that will link you back to the PDF in their repository. But one of the things that they wanted to do is enlist the efforts of library subject specialists and data services librarians to track this big data and other e-research funding programs. So those of you who are subject specialists, you want to just chime in there. What do you think about this? Do you have time for this? Does this sort of naturally fit into what you're doing? Was this a huge sort of idea change for you?
Since I'm sitting right here, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and jump in.
I always forget, Rebecca, that you're a subject specialist too.
Yep. As one of the subject specialists, and I work with a number of our science and engineering departments. As a subject specialist, we were all really excited when we started talking about data and data services and data science, but it was also a little bit stressful because we thought, how are we going to have time to learn all of this? Like, we're excited and want to learn about it, but as everyone, I'm sure, is aware, when you pick up new things, you don't always get rid of other things.
It's true.
So I don't know that we really have a solution, but we have a chat coming in here who may have a better suggestion than what I'm talking about here.
So Margaret, why are you pushing for these data services? First of all, where are you? See, oh, you're at Temple. Okay. So you're pushing for data services there. Is there a group at your library that's doing data services, or are you sort of a lone voice crying out in the wilderness, pushing for this sort of thing? I hope you're not a lone voice. I hope you have an awesome team. Start an exploratory group. That's a great way to start. So who's on your exploratory group? Who's interested in this? Is it all subject librarians? Did it break out a different Paul Simon and Garfunkel here? Sounds of silence. The other science librarian, a person from computing services.
Okay.
That's a good group.
And we found here at Virginia Tech that the subject specialists have actually played a pretty important role, because as the liaisons, or the college librarians, as we call them, to the colleges, we're the main communication avenue to the departments. So often we have people come to us and say, I need to put together a data management plan. Who do I talk to? So we sort of route those people to the experts and then learn as much as we can along the way.
Actually, as one of the quote-unquote experts, I really love bouncing the data management back to the subject librarians too, because I feel like they have some really important knowledge on what these researchers are doing, and they should really be aware of that. So if at all possible, I really like to involve subject specialists on the data management plan consulting as well. So let's see what the chat says. So we've got a science and data services librarian. That's a really good title. So okay, so you have a liaison role, helping you to make those data relevant connections. Yep. Oh, you're building data services in a small liberal arts school. That's excellent. Wow. That's going to be a really fun project, I think. A small liberal arts school, and just another sort of experience from Virginia Tech. We had our first sort of dual subject data position description go out recently. We've got a position open for, what is it, data engineering and data
informatics.
That's what it is. It used to be called engineering informatics, but they're calling it something different now. But it's actually a position, and I think Purdue has a number of these as well, and they may be able to chime in. That's funded half by a department, or actually half by the College of Engineering and half by the library. So it truly is sort of straddling the divide between the library data services and that key departmental knowledge. So let's see, Diana. Their approach has been to take manageable baby steps. Oh, small liberal, so data librarians. Oh, okay, so librarians at small liberal arts places can do regarding data management. So what do librarians do at small universities?
I think we have a whole little group here.
Small liberal arts, yeah. I think that's great. I don't know that we're not really like a large mega university, but I'm not sure, we're not small liberal arts.
No, we're definitely not, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got about 30,000 students, definitely a science and technology heavy environment here.
Yep. So Allison talks about collaboration with the sponsored programs office. That's absolutely sure. That's really key. So you guys, even though you're at small liberal arts universities, you do still have people putting together data management plans. Well, of course, for the endowment for the humanities and that sort of thing. That's really excellent. And I think that'll lead into the sort of liberal arts, data management for the liberal arts, which is, I think, really important. All right, I'm going to advance the slides to see if we get through all of them in the next 15 minutes, or only a couple more. Oh, and this one got a little wonky as well.
So readable.
Yep. So what resources does your organization devote to these sort of data sciences, whether it's research data management, data information literacy, or data services, whatever they call it? And I just pulled out a quote from the CLEAR report talking about what the data res survey showed, which is basically that some funding is being devoted to research data management, usually through a combination of sources, but the overall sentiment expressed by most data res survey respondents was that this funding is very modest in scale and often takes the form of incidental commitment of time by librarians who are usually tasked with other duties. So there's this question of how much of your time does data take? How much of your time can data take? So again, this gets back to sort of the liaison subject specialist model. How much of that time can you afford to commit to data services or research data management or data information literacy? Some universities have entire data services departments. I mean, we really don't. We have a Center for Digital Research and Scholarship, which sort of houses a lot of things, the institutional repository, myself as the lone data person crying out in the wilderness, and a sort of technical informatics project. Sorry about that. I'm going to check that out. But I'm really curious how other libraries and universities commit resources to these topics. Oh, okay, nobody wants to talk about resources. That's cool.
Maybe we could frame the question, what sorts of advocacy have you been involved in to maybe get more resources? Because over the past couple of years, we've really seen that devotion of resources to this area grow quite a bit because of some strong advocates here in the library. Sure. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that. Advocacy efforts that have been successful, not so successful, how that's worked. Oh, did we get a chat?
Let's see. So Brad says that they started with the idea of incorporating data into everyone's job, but they're developing into having a couple of point people doing data, and liaisons get to it when they can. Yep.
And that's basically what we're doing here. The sentence at the end of this quote that you have, I think, sums up pretty well the situation that we want to avoid, the incidental commitments of time. That's just not efficient.
Yeah.
It is better to have people like yourself that we can send people to.
So Wendy at George Mason started off with data services, and now they're incorporating data into some liaison librarian positions. And it is a big time commitment. Oh yes, Brad, you have all of our sympathy. So Diana started off, their library started off with a sort of typical approach, putting together a research guide on research data management. And oh good, you've got buy-in from your grants office. That's excellent. So your grants officers direct your grant applicants to your website. That's fantastic. And then they have access to basic info and know who to contact during the library questions. That's a great way to start out. And that really, to do that, you really do have to have that strong tie to your grants office, which, you know, depending on where you are, the tie may be very firm, or the tie may be to that office may be very tentative. So we've got about 10-ish minutes left. I just wanted to move on to final thoughts. So these are just sort of almost the core question. Does your library have a data services unit or something similar? Who's responsible for the instruction that goes on? And that's a question that I'm actually really interested in. Being the only person really doing data as it being in my title here at Virginia Tech, I'm really interested in finding out other models for doing data information literacy instruction. As we've talked about, liaison librarians, instruction librarians are really busy. They can probably help out some of the time if they have time and interest. But I think we really need a model that is sustainable, and that's something that I'm really trying to create here is a sustainable model for this data literacy and data information literacy instruction. So just even outside of the idea of data management plan education and data management plan consulting, but this broader idea of data information literacy. And then that gets into the relationship between data services and data literacy. What should that look like? Should they be part of the same branch? Should data literacy be taken over by subject librarians? I mean, what could this look like in the future? How could we see these two, the relationship between these two areas? Oh, that's an excellent division there, division of labor. So Brad has two positions, an e-science and data librarian doing sort of the public services side, sure, and then a data curation librarian handling the technical aspects. So, right, lab instruments, right. So political reasons, I can, you know, anytime someone says political reasons, I think, oh, what political reasons? So I don't know if you can get into that because it's political, but if you want to tell us, that would be really interesting. And Brad, are you one of those two positions, or are you outside of that? Ah, so you're the curation guru. Okay, I understand. I understand. So data curation librarian. That's an interesting title. So how do you define data curation? I came from the University of Illinois gift list. So I know what my definition of data curation is, informed, of course, by those fine folks there. But what's your data curation definition? I love definitions of data curation because they can be very disparate. So, right, good point, good point. Putting data and curation together. Curation is obtaining, preserving, and offering access. Data is data, yeah. True enough. So Allison asks what hooking up with lab instruments means. And while hopefully those folks are thinking about that, you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask? Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss on this topic? Any questions, any terminology? That data reference terminology is still very new to me that someone was talking about at the beginning. May have been Barbara, I'm not sure. But that's sort of a way of thinking that I've never thought about, data reference. So Brad's starting to look at the library taking over holding researchers' actual data as in a repository. Yeah, that's a little tricky as well because how many resources, how much resources, I'm not sure which of those it should be, do you devote to hanging on to data? What if they want to add to the data? What if they want to sort of stream the data live? we've got a team here at Tech in the library who's been working with a research group that gathers accelerometer data from a particular building, and they wanted to be able to make the data open and available to people streaming, so you can sort of get a current look at what's going on with the building. Lindy's got some resources on data reference, numeric data services and sources for the general reference library. Who's that by, Wendy? I guess I could look it up. Yeah, Brad's just starting to look at the huge cost. Yep. Okay, modeling after John Hopkins and Cornell. Yeah, and you have to ask yourself how much. Yeah, okay. Let me get myself back on track. I thought it would be very difficult to figure out how much do you charge for 1 terabyte of data. How much do you charge for 2 terabytes of data? What if you're trying to use some sort of like Amazon Web Services or something, you're trying to use the EC2 or the S3 or something like that in the cloud. Do you charge for that? That sort of thing. Can you just, if a researcher will give you $1,000, can you just buy a couple of terabytes of hard disk space and throw it in somewhere? These are all really difficult questions. And Linda, yeah, I'm familiar with that book by Linda Kellum and Catherine Peter. Yeah, that's an excellent point. One of our librarians recommended that book to me. And convincing scientists to trust us, that's another good point. Yeah, actual work experience as a scientist helps.
I'm going to jump in real quickly and ask something of our participants. A couple of people throughout the session have mentioned LibGuides or other web pages that they've created. If you guys want to pop those URLs in the chat box here, I would love to take a look at some of those, just see what other people have put together. So if you mentioned having a website or a LibGuide, or if you haven't mentioned it but you have one, pop that URL in. I'd really like to look through some of those. Back to you.
All right. And Jake is asking, question for everyone, how do you see data information literacy developing at your libraries, and what resources and support do you think you'll need to move forward? In terms, here at Virginia Tech, in terms of resources and support, I mean, I think what we really need right now is just human resources. We need time. We maybe need a couple of more positions, which I think we're slowly getting. I think that a lot of the resources in terms of curriculum development and actual instructional materials are being developed. The data information literacy program is fantastic. There's some great materials and great papers out there for us to draw from. The UMass Med eScience framework, research data management framework, is another great one. There are other ones out there. In fact, Wendy, I'm going to mention our boot camp. So Virginia Tech, University of Virginia, George Mason, James Madison, and Old Dominion just last week put on a 2-day data management boot camp. We did sort of design the agenda, the schedule from scratch, but we did incorporate a lot of the sort of standard data management topics, metadata, storage, security, data management planning, the research lifecycle, that sort of thing. So I think there's enough information here for us to draw from. I think for a lot of us, it's just getting the support within the library to sort of roll out some of this instruction to our universities, and getting the buy-in from the researchers and the students. Here at Tech, when I sent out the announcement for the boot camp to the graduate students, I had about 60 graduate students reply that they were interested. I could only take about 20. Some of the other universities had more, some of them had less. So let's see, does anyone else have an answer about this question on what resources and support do we need? And great collection of LibGuides here, folks.
Yes, thanks for sending in those links. That's awesome. I can't wait to go back and look through those. I hate to do this, but it is 10:59, and I know that everyone probably has, it's 10:59 here in Virginia. It's probably a different time for some of you. We know you all have busy days. I just wanted to thank everyone once again for joining us for the chat today. It's been really great, and I've learned a lot. I wanted to thank Andy again for being our resident expert.
Oh, I don't know about that.
And sharing what she knows with us. I'll just put in a plug. Again, the ACRL Science and Technology Section Information Literacy Committee sponsors one of these chats every month. We always send out information about it on the STS listserv, so look forward to upcoming topics. I can't remember off the top of my head some of the ones we have coming up, but they're all good, I promise. And we will be sending out the link to this session that was recorded over the same listserv. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to everyone. Great comments, everybody. All right, that's it. Hope everyone has a great day.
Bye.